everybody. I hope that you're having a great evening. Today is the first day of spring officially, so we're going to continue the Refresh for Spring series. And today I want to talk about refreshing your touch. In addition to refreshing your mind, you want to refresh the people that you touch, the impact that your life has on the world. You know, our hearts and our spirits are carried along in this body, and the body is just a vessel. But the vessel was designed to have fingers and toes and things that reach into the earth and connect us to other people reaching to the earth, and that reach out to touch one another in a certain way, and unique blessings are invested in us by our Creator to touch other people's lives, and we are also meant to receive blessings and touch from other people. So how do you do that without getting weary? Because as human beings, a lot of times our touch, just like any other connectivity, just like when we connect our computers to the internet, sometimes that connection needs to be refreshed. Sometimes we're connecting at the wrong port and we're hitting an unreceptive line instead of hitting the right people that we are meant to be touching, or people that aren't connecting with us well. So how do you refresh that? How do you have the most optimal impact that you possibly can on the world around you? Well, the first thing I want to suggest to you is that you should play well with others, and that means that you need to learn to play. Relationships relationships are built on play. So when you connect with other people, you should try to have fun with them and laugh and connect and play games. Not just with children, even though that is extremely important in your relationships with children, but with other people. When you play and tease with your spouse, when you play with your friends and you go out and you laugh and you have a good time, that bonds you to other people. Joy and fun times can relate us to others in lasting memories, and they're very important, not just fun, not just fluff, but extremely important in our connection and our impact with other people. And as you're impacting other people, you need to recognize what the function is that you have in that relationship with other people. In some people's lives, you will have the role of being more of a mentor than in a mutual relationship with them. So if you can define your role in their life, that helps you to have more comfort and more peace in what you are giving and getting in that relationship. So know the difference between being a mentor and being a partner in that relationship. If you're a mentor, say to your children or to a friend who is in a different place than you are, and you're helping them build their lives, you're not going to expect as much back from them in the same mutual give and take way as you would with a partner. In a spouse relationship, you should definitely be a partner most of the time. There will be times when one is strengthening the other, and those things happen in marriage, and that's important to let that happen too, but it shouldn't be a one-way relationship all the time for a spouse relationship. And you should have some balance. You should have some friends. Hey, Sally, so good to see you. You should have some friends that are mutual relationships and some friends where you are mentoring other people. You shouldn't be always a mentor, and you shouldn't be always mutual without ever reaching out to help other people build them up. And know the difference in your roles between giving a gift and getting a trade. A gift is what you give when you love someone because you want to bless them. You should never expect something back from a gift. And this is often a difficult thing for parents who feel like their gifts are unappreciated. But the nature of a gift is you should not expect something back. If you can't give it without expecting something back, it's not a gift, it's a trade. And you need to make it clear when you give that gift that this is a trade. I'm giving you this in expectation for that. And when it's clear, it's less likely to ruin that relationship. So make sure that you and the person you're in relationship with know the difference between a gift and a trade. A trade has terms. You were expecting something for it. A gift should never have terms. It should be given freely without expecting anything back. So make that clear. And make it clear to yourself too, that you need to know to yourself that you shouldn't be expecting anything back, that this is a gift, and maybe you give to some people that you're mentoring. Sometimes it's a gift and sometimes it's a trade. I expect you to do this when I've asked you to grow in this area. So that's perfectly normal to have some trades and some gifts, but be clear to yourself and to the other person which those are. And sometimes when we go and we try to reach out and make more impact with other people, there's a social anxiety there. It may be full-blown social anxiety. It may be just a little bit of discomfort with social skills. If you can define what it means to reach out in a different way, that can help get you past some of the fear that you have regarding relationships. You may have been hurt before. You may have been in relationships that were not mutual, that you were doing all the giving and they weren't giving back. You need to know that when you enter new relationships, the important attitude to have is that of, I have something to give them that they need. I have something that the world needs, that God has put inside of me, that they need my blessing. If I hoard it and keep it to myself, I will become a stagnant pond instead of free-flowing water. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But it's very important that you look at blessing other people as the primary reason to get past the fear of reaching out to them. And not just, what are they going to give me? Because you may have your fears confirmed if you look at every relationship with respect to, what are they going to give me? What am I going to get out of it? You will always be disappointed if that's your reason for entering into relationships with other people. People cannot meet your needs. Only God can meet your needs. Recognize it is not the purpose of another individual to meet all your needs. Now, God may use that other individual as his conduit for pouring blessings, but you need to always recognize, if that person fails, God will not fail. As long as you turn to him, as long as you keep asking to him to meet your needs. God is the one who meets the needs ultimately. And God is wanting to use you to meet the needs of other people as well. So if you shrink back from that opportunity, you're missing an opportunity for God to pour through you to bless other people. So the greatest antidote for fear is its opposite. And what many people don't understand is that the opposite of fear is love. Love is the opposite of fear. What people do that is most cruel and hateful and unkind and poisonous in the world is done out of fear, not hate. Hate is actually really passionate. But fear and distance and indifference and seeing someone as an enemy is greater in a danger in relationships than actual hate. So fear is the opposite of love. So unconditional love, not conditional love, which is selfishness. It's what can you do for me? But unconditional love, how can I bless you, is the way to get past that fear when it comes to social anxiety. And when you're looking to bless others, you will ultimately find someone you can bless. And that will be a blessing to you because you're pouring out. So I want to skip down to what the refresh kind of concept means. Fresh requires inflow and outflow. So in order to stay refreshed in your touch, you need to learn the art of receive to share living. You need to constantly be receiving God's blessings to flow through you and flow out of you. If you hold on to that and you keep it to yourself, they grow stagnant, like I was saying before, like a pond. Scum grows on a pond. Let's not be a pond. We want to be an aqueduct of clear, fresh, flowing water, constantly being poured into by God. So you need to learn to receive from God directly and from those that God chooses to pour into your life. And you need to continually pour out what God has given you. All the teaching, all of the love, and all of the grace that you pour out will constantly allow God to pour more in. You will never be out of what God is pouring through you. You will simply be getting more because you're open as a vessel, as a pouring faucet. When it's turned on and flowing, it's constantly pulling more in. So that's what we should be in our touch to others. We should be part of God's flow, receiving in and pouring out constantly, vibrant, fresh. Give people your best, because what you have that is best is ultimately from God. You don't have it on your own anyway. It's not yours to keep. It wasn't created by you. God created it through you. So the more we pour it through, the better that we are blessed by God to continually refresh and build and make it better. Give the gift of your presence. Be present with people, truly, genuinely present, listening to them and speaking to them in a way that shows that you hear them. A lot of counselors will tell people to use I statements. They'll tell people to use reflective listening. Those things are non-accusatory, non-threatening, and it shows that you are sitting there as a servant, ready to listen, ready to be there, to be present. And being present can happen through Skype, it can happen through Google Hangouts, but you want to be present in a way that acknowledges where that person is emotionally. I hear your heart. That's what all of your feedback should be saying. I hear your heart, not just the words you're saying, but the heart that's behind it. Look for the emotion. If someone sounds angry, it may not be that they're angry, it may be that they're wounded or afraid. So listen, be present with their heart. Listen for their heartbeat when you're with them. People will grow closer to you and you will have a better touch, a better impact if you are truly and genuinely present. Also, recognize when your channels are in the wrong place. Recognize when you are reaching out and touching the wrong connectors. Sometimes the people you're with are not healthy people for you to try to connect to. So you're wasting your output on people that are not receiving it well. And there are certain kinds of people that are just not in a healthy enough place for you to bless them with the love and the grace and the gifts and the blessings and the creativity and the talents that you're meant to pour out to. So recognize what that looks like. There are lists and there are resources that can help you identify toxic people. That people that don't have healthy boundaries and refuse to learn them, people that will not acknowledge that you have anything important to say or to offer them, people that will trample on all the things that are most blessing that you try to give them. If people are not receiving well the good things that you're pouring into their life, that doesn't mean they have to always agree with you. But if they're not ever receiving the benefits of who you are in their life and the love that you're trying to give them, then that may be that you need to switch connections. You may be needing to re-plug into more productive relationship outputs. So that's something to look at, and you should talk about that with a life coach or a counselor to see if the people in your life are healthy or unhealthy. And I'll get into in a minute what healthy boundaries looks like, so that can be one indicator of whether someone is toxic, that they're always taking from you. They're never giving back. And that's not just as a mentor-mentee relationship. That means that they are constantly requiring and demanding more of your time, more of your energy, more of your input, and never acknowledging that they're getting any benefit from it. It's never enough. So that kind of a relationship, that could be a red flag. So it's important to set healthy boundaries. And what that means is knowing where I stop and you begin. In order to give to you, in order to connect to you, I need to realize I'm an individual and you're an individual, so I know when I'm pouring into you. Yes, we're connected, but we also need to have healthy boundaries and recognize what I'm responsible for and what you're responsible for. I'm responsible for my words, my thoughts, my feelings, and my actions. And so are you. You're responsible for your words, thoughts, feelings, and actions. So if you try to make me responsible for what you're thinking about, what you say, how you feel, and what you do, that's just going to make somebody angry because it doesn't work. I can't be responsible for your feelings. I can share your heart. I can support you. I can encourage you. I can pour blessings into your life and do all the things that God intends me to do in your life, but I can't be ultimately responsible for caring for your feelings. You still need to hold your heart. So when you share your heart with other people, you're still holding on to it. You're not going to drop it in their lap and say, here, I hope you take care of it. It's yours to take care of. You're responsible. You can't be responsible for someone else's heart. You can bless them, that God and you are ultimately together responsible for taking care of your feelings and tending to your emotional needs. Other people are only a vessel that God uses. They are not ultimately responsible. You're responsible for your own behavior. You can't blame somebody else for something you choose to do. You can try, but ultimately, according to God's law, you're responsible for your behavior, I'm responsible for mine. And the same goes for words. You can't blame someone else for something you say. And if you're in relationships with people that don't recognize the difference where boundaries lie, you can try to communicate with them calmly or get a third party to help you what boundaries look like and what that means and where I stop and where you begin. so that you don't constantly make each other angry by trying to do something that's impossible, by trying to be responsible for them or them trying to make you responsible for them. So look for those red flags. That may be a toxic relationship, or it may be one that just needs to be fixed. And so look for that. And when we're doing that art of receive to share living, you need to know how to communicate effectively. And that includes fourfold integrity in your communication. Make sure everything that you say is beneficial. Does it benefit them? It doesn't always have to be positive. There's going to be times when you need to say hard things to help people, but do it in a way that's benefiting them. You should be always edifying, building somebody up. Even if it's telling the truth that they may not want to hear, it needs to be beneficial, not destructive. That needs to be the intent and the way that you frame the words that you use to deliver that truth. It also needs to be true, needs to be honest. Don't be dishonest with people. There is no reason to mislead people and deceive them. And it also needs to be clear. Don't expect people to read between the lines or read your mind. Mind reading is a terrible threat to honest and open communication and healthy relationships. No one knows what you want for your birthday unless you tell them. Don't expect them to read your mind. Don't expect someone to know what you're feeling just because you should know what I think about that. You should know how I feel about that. Well, they shouldn't know unless you've told them. Be clear in your communication with people that are important to you. If you want them to know something, communicate it very clearly so there is no misunderstanding. And be timely. Know when it's time to communicate. When people are angry, that's a bad time to communicate. No one's going to hear you. There was a great episode in the TV show This Is Us, in which both of the spouses were yelling. They were yelling and not listening at all. And it was terrific because it really reflects what we do when we get angry at each other. We yell and our minds are full of what we're trying to defend ourselves with and what we're trying to attack the other person with, and we don't listen. The entire frontal lobe of the brain shuts off. All of the listening and all of the receiving is gone. All of the processing logically, all of the solving problems, gone. Completely not working when someone is angry. When your heart rate goes up to 70 beats per minute and higher, you're not listening. So there's no point in trying to communicate when no one's listening. So take time to calm down before you try to talk things through. It's extremely important that you use your energy for communication when it works. And make sure it's timely in the sense also that you want to communicate with people frequently enough that you keep those bonds fresh. Refresh your connections with those long-lost relatives, with the people that you are friends with that you haven't seen for a while. Take them to coffee. Make sure that you stay in touch because people are precious and their impact on our lives is very valuable. And it's worth doing for that 15, 20 minutes of coffee that you can have with them at Starbucks. It's totally worth keeping that friendship open and alive and fresh. So protect your legacy of blessings. You don't want the impact of your touch on the world to sour. So be careful about how you touch other people. Touch people with words and with presence and with connections and messages that build them up and benefit and bless their lives. So if you can't say something nice, what your mom, your grandma always tell you, it's probably not time for you to communicate yet if you can't say anything nice. What you have to say may not be all nice. It may be difficult, but you need to learn how to frame it like a skunk sandwich. Fluffy, I know you're a valuable person that God loves on top. Here's the meat of the matter, and the fluffy on the bottom. Here's the opportunity for you to continue to be the best that God intends you to be. So making sure that you make a skunk sandwich, the middle might be stinky, but you need to know how to put the fluffy bread on either side of that and communicate in a way that someone else will swallow it. Because if you're just going to attack and be threatening and nasty and have nothing nice to say at all, they're not going to hear you. So it's wasted time. So make sure that you are calm enough and that you can say enough nice things to frame the difficult thing so that the other person will receive it well. Avoid tainting others' opinions with negativity or bias against somebody else. That's the gossip rule. That's why it's in the Bible next to murder. It is very toxic. And sometimes in the South, we like to say, we're kind of sub-South in Florida, but we sometimes get Southern and we want to say, bless their heart, and use that as a way to justify gossiping about somebody. But anytime what you have to say about someone is going to create a negative opinion about that person, to someone who does not already know them or isn't aware of the situation, and it's a situation where you're not going to benefit that individual. It's not a prayer request. It's not really a bless their heart thing. It's just, I feel like venting, or I have something that sounds colorful or entertaining to say. You should not say that. Do not say something that's going to negatively bias someone else's opinion about a person. So if you think it might make the other person think negatively of them, you need to refrain from saying that and pray about it before you speak it. So say emotional things in person also. Try not to text things that are very emotionally loaded. They can be very easily misunderstood. Anytime there's a tense situation, you need to at least make it a phone call so they can hear the tone of your voice. Don't say things in text that are in emotional situations. It's too easily misread, and you can create a worse situation than already exists by trying to make it impersonal with writing instead of speaking. So also another problem that happens is people like to vent on social media or in email because it seems so impersonal and safe. And then it's out there in the World Wide Web forever and ever. And you give this negative odor into the world from your words. You are making other people experience negativity from your complaints that you're putting on the internet. So try to keep all your social media as positive as possible. Even if the positivity in your message is, this is what we can do to make it better. If you notice something that needs to be changed in the world, that's fine. But frame it with, this is what we can do to make the world a better place. Because this whole thing is related to a quote from Edward Bach. And if you're not familiar with Edward Bach, he was a philanthropist. He was a Pulitzer Prize winning author. He was a publisher, and he lived up into 1930 was when he died. So this was from a little while ago, but his garden still stands. He has a wonderful public gardens called Bach Tower Gardens that he created. At the end of his life, it was open to the public a year before he died, and that was when he was quoted as saying, "Make you the world a bit better or more beautiful because you have lived in it." And I've always loved that quote. I used to visit Bach Tower Gardens. It's on Iron Mountain, one of the highest places in Florida, which tends to be a flat land. But it's covered with gardens, and at its pinnacle there's this beautiful pink tower that overlooks a reflection pond. And that is where Edward Bach spent his last moments, gazing in the reflection pool at the tower, which was filled with these beautiful carillon bells that toll every hour. He looked at that legacy that he was leaving to the world in his final moments of his life. What would you look on in the final moments of your life and say, this is the beautiful mark that I'm leaving on humanity as I leave this place? This is how I am making the world a bit better or more beautiful because I have lived in it according to God's creation in me, through me, pouring this fresh blessings I receive to share in my life. Wouldn't you like to be able to look on that in the last moment of your life and say, just like God did at the end of his days of creation, it's good. It's good. Well, that's all I have for you today. I hope that you're able to refresh your touch this week as we spring ahead into the season. And I look forward to hearing your comments on my blog page, which is www.divineencouragement.com. So until next week, have an awesome week. Bye-bye.